Hey everybody, it's Jeff Knepper with Flow Software. That's me down there in the corner of your screen, but you'll notice I'm not speaking during this recording. That's because I wanted to build out a production report project, and I didn't want to slow myself down to teach while I was doing it. That way you'd get a sense of the real time it takes. But I'm going to go ahead and narrate what I'm doing now. There's other videos if you want to learn more of the exactly how. This is going to go pretty quick. So I've brought in an event and a metric. I'm using my Flow simulator as my historian for my database here. I have a filler that has a couple tags I'm going to use. I'll bring the product tag and associate it to my filler event for running. And I'll go ahead and bring over the good and the bad counter tags. More on those in a bit. So I need an event. My idea behind this dashboard is I want to know when I was making a new product, what product I was making, add some metadata to it, and then do some actual calcs on how much did I make of each. Now my product tag is either a 0 when I'm not running, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4 integer value when I am running. So my trigger is when I'm greater than or equal to 1, let's run, and when I'm at 0, I'm not running. Notice here as I take a look at the data to show you that's the pattern. So when it's at a 0 state, I was in a changeover. I'm going to add 2 attributes to this. And again, this is a real-time video. I haven't sped it up. I've just used the product enough over the last 6 months that I'm comfortable at going at some speed here. I'm going to link a new enumeration so that instead of getting a 1, 2, 3, or 4 back when I take a look at the product I was making, I'm going to get the type of product that I'm making. So I'll add a couple of pairings and I'll just give it a different type of name. Maybe if I don't use the description field, that'll help. So look, I'll put it down in the value now. Well done, Jeff. All right, so we're going to make orange juice. We'll make maybe like an apple juice and grape juice, cranberry juice. And once I have that in, great. Hey, if I didn't have that, if I didn't want to have to type that, I could choose to link out to a different database where that might already be living. Super helpful if I'm trying to do this for like a batch or a SKU or something of that nature. I could come in and change the shade of each of these types of juice if I wanted to match a certain color when it's orange juice or a certain color when it's apple juice later on my dashboard. Now I'm going to go ahead and just do a calculated attribute. I'm using the insert period feature to grab the shift at start information. So now instead of getting the time of day, I'm going to get actually what shift we were running. Deploy it, and it's going to backfill. I have everything defaulted to the 1st of December. That's going to give us 2 full months of data. All right, calculated tag. I just bring one of my tags down to the calculator, and now I can create a new in-memory tag. So I've got bad, let's drag good in, and then we'll add the 2 together, and that's going to give me my total throughput. I have to always validate my expressions, and I'm going to hold everything off until I'm ready to deploy everything. You'll see me do this in a little bit. All right, so we can now see my attributes are there. And now I'm going to drag the event over to my daily measure in the flow zone, and I'm going to build 3 of these. I want to calculate how many runs did I do per day. I want to know what my total duration of those runs are, and I want to know what the mean time was between my runs. So how much changeover did I spend? So I need to do a little configuration for each of these. I will use the event aggregation. I will switch to active duration. I'm going to sum those and convert from milliseconds over to minutes. We'll deploy later. Same thing this time for count. Count is default set. I'll give myself a integer value and then change my units. This is the number of runs I did per day. By the way, that unit of measure is completely customizable, but once you enter something once, you don't have to re-enter it. You can pick it down. That helps keep some standards on your units of measure. Mean time between events, I'm going to use the duration between events aggregation, and then I'm going to take the average of that. When I tab out, I will end up with the ability to now select an aggregation of that value. Again, converting over to minutes, and now I've got all 3 ready to go. I decided, it's not mean time between starts. It's actually mean time between runs. So a little quick deploy. Now those 3 measures are going to go and calculate. All right, now I'm going to switch over. I'm only going to work on total, and you'll see why here in a bit. Total is going to start off as a totalizer. So here's a look at that data. Just continues to go count. I'm going to use the hourly KPI, create a 1 hour, and I'm going to use the counter aggregate. The counter aggregate is our own aggregation format that will watch a totalizer tag, and if it resets while we're in the middle of one of our time periods, if it drops back to 0 during the hour, we account for that drop so you don't have to hard code that. I'm adding context to this not just from the production calendar, but also from my filler running event. You saw me drag that over into the context. This way, I will be able to understand the number of products that I've made. I also brought my limit settings into this, and you'll see why later. All right, I've selected counter, that's done. I'll drag the hour on top of itself a couple times. That'll calculate a sum of those hours for a day-to-date, shift-to-date, and week-to-date. Nothing more to do there. I've got it now set up as a shift by dropping it on the shift, now as a day by dropping it on the day, and now it's time to take those out of the hour branch and put them under the total branch. I'm going to go ahead and take a full month by dragging the day over, and now we're going to do some work inside of the shift. So within my full shift, I'll use a calculated KPI, and this will be my opportunity to shift the time period away from now. I'll use the properties feature under retrieval, and I'll say instead of current period, give me the previous period, shift it back 1 period. So that is the previous shift, 3 shifts in a day. I want the exact same thing so that I can do a comparative to my same shift from the day before. This time I'll shift it backwards 3 periods. Again, properties, I just change my period from a 1 to a 3, put it back in and validate. Let's do another calculation. This time I think I need my averages, so I'm going to do a 7-day average. I'll also set this up for a min and a max over the last 7 days. So Flow is able to look at the results of what we've already written to a database and bring back an array of those values that I can now modify with an aggregate. And that's what we're going to set this up to do. So we'll select the measure, grab the property, do a range, shift that range backward 7 days. Now we bring that back in, you'll see the -7 and the 0. That delivers an array of values, and I'm telling it to take the average. I'll do the exact same thing, and this time I'll do it for a max. And then the next time I'll do it for a min. This is a really great feature, specifically when I want to start calculating my current values against where I've been historically. It's great to be able to establish things like a run rate, or to be able to later on, you'll see me do a rate of change calculation based on doing a comparison of where I am now to where I was the day before. All right, we've got those done. Let's see, what else are we going to do under the shift? So we're going to go ahead and bring those up and nest them under the shift. So they're children of that full shift measure. This just helps me organize them in case I need later on to reference them. I know exactly where they are in my model. You do have full flexibility to build this model out however you'd like to build it. This is just the way that I personally enjoy organizing my measures. Let's go ahead and do a calc that will tell me how today's last shift compared to the 7-day average. You'll always see me check the validation check mark. That goes from blue to gray once it's ready. If you don't check the validation, it'll pop up a warning message. You might see that also. All right, I'm going to do basically the same on my full day. I'm going to run yesterday, so shift that back a period. And then I'm also going to create a rate of change calculation as well as a 7-day average. Let's just watch that. Rate of change is something that is a calculation that I tend to try to keep. It's a simple expression, but it can mess me up. I don't know, maybe it'll mess you up sometimes as well. I remember it by just saying it's the now minus the then divided by the then, or in this case today minus yesterday divided by yesterday. Multiplying it by 100 brings us with the percentage. It is easy to get that wrong. Often find that when we're working on in analytics, you do have to make your brain work a little differently. It's almost like it's a muscle we have to work out. A lot of the stuff I just tend to keep a little note, or if I can't keep it in memory. All right, so at this point, I'm just looking through, do I have everything that I want inside of total? I believe I'm going to go ahead and grab my 7-day average as well. And then I wanted to be able to provide potentially a delta on my dashboard of the difference between the current value for the day and how that compared to our 7-day average. So a little bit of quick work here and we'll be done. As you can tell, it's really easy to take a single KPI like my total throughput and end up with a dozen or more. I think I end up with about 18 different KPIs every time I build out one of these trees in this example. That's why we favor an unlimited model where you just have a full access to as many calcs, as many sources, as many data syncs, as many dashboards, as many users. We find it's the fairest way to price the product so that you're never limited by discovering more insights in your data. Okay, so here's a neat trick. I want the exact same thing replicated for good and bad. I'm just going to copy all of total, and I'm going to paste it into the good and paste it into the bad tag. Now, everything I built is built off of a single source, and so all of that was built off of the total tag source. If I open up the 1 hour KPI inside of either the good or the bad, underneath of total, you're going to see that that 1 hour KPI is linked to total. I'm going to just delete it. And then I'm going to drag good in, make sure my aggregate is set back to counter. And then I'm actually done now. All that work I just did in total now also has been replicated for good. I'm just going to clean it up, drop the 1 hour, the full shift, the full day, the full month under the good. And then I will delete that total tag, and that total tag is no longer needed inside of this branch. Do the exact same thing for bad. Just change the relationship that 1H is built on, sync it over with the bad tag, make sure my counter is selected, clean it up, and we're ready to deploy. So at this point, I'm about 13 minutes into the project, 14 minutes into the project, and I've done literally all of the data cleansing and all of the data aggregation and calcs that I need. I wrote just a little bit, I guess, of script, but for the most part, this is a no-code, low-code drag and drop tool. Now I'm working on my dashboard. This is over in charts. I'm going to duplicate my folder structure. This is something I always find to be helpful, is to duplicate my folder structure in charts the way that I do in my model. That way it's easy for me to remember where everything is. I'll build my dashboard. It's a daily report, and then that is the physical representation of my web page, basically. I'm going to go ahead and lay out my components. I'm going to put a couple widgets on the top, 2 tables, an event timeline, and also going to grab, what else? A trend chart. These widgets I'm going to use just to display some key information at the top. I've already got a sense of how I want to lay this out because I did a dry run of it. That's the image that I shared at the very beginning of the video. I do it this way so that I can actually not be using time to think about design here, but instead just show you the amount of time it takes if the design's already been determined for you to build one of these. I'm building this all on one filler, just like you saw me duplicate the work for the KPIs under total and share that work to good and bad. Once this project's done, I'm able to templatize it, and so anytime I have a filler that I want to build this report on, I don't have to go through all of these steps again. Having the template in place allows me to really spend maybe 5 minutes and deploy to a number of pieces of equipment. So if I wanted to deploy this to filler number 2, I could. If I wanted to deploy this to 10 different fillers, I could with the same amount of effort. All right, so let's look at the event-based timeline. I'm going into the General tab, and I'm changing my period to represent the start of yesterday and go through the end of yesterday, hence the -1. Now I just drag the event over to the sections. I'm going to go ahead and right-click on timeline, and I want it to use the colors from my attribute of product name for the event timeline. Change up the date format, and I have this piece now complete. We'll pop over, take a look, and you'll start to see this dashboard coming together. It is a web page. What's nice is every single one of these components can be broken out and have its own unique URL, and that allows me to embed the page or any of the components in other applications. All right, so we're done with the event-based timeline. I'm going to build out the widgets. I'm choosing to house 3 different pieces of information inside of each of my widget. What would that be? I guess it would be my widget control. And so you're going to see me duplicate this widget 3 different times for this control, and then I'll do the same thing for the other. I could have a chart, I could have a gauge, I could have a dial. I prefer text for this layout. I want to keep it simple. And there's 3 different things I'm going to show in the top left-hand corner of this report, what I believe are the most important pieces of information. What was my total throughput for the day? What was my good throughput for the day? And what was my bad throughput for the day? I'm going to go ahead and lay this out with these other widgets, but I'll do the same thing each time. Right-click, add a widget. For those widgets, I'll choose how I want to align it, what it should be as far as text or a gauge, and then I just associate the right data from my model with this widget. And that's another drag mechanism. So I want my good, I want my full day. I just drag it, drop it on the widget, and when change the label, and I'm good, and I'm done now. And then I'll do the exact same thing for my bad full day. Change the label, and we'll be able to preview this now. All right, so that's 2 components done. Now for the second widget underneath, I want to put in some of those aggregates that I did based on my filler event. Oh, another nice best practice, I didn't realize didn't remember I took the time to do this, is to change the names of your default labels so that if you have a very busy dashboard, it's easier for you to use the right-hand side and see what your different components are. So you're going to see me do the exact same thing here for this widget. I adjust the period to go back a day and tell it to stop there. I move it to the end of the interval, and I'm just going to create 3 sections now. I'm in a pretty good workflow here. I know exactly what I need to modify. I just did it. I'm duplicating that. I could have chose to copy and paste the widget that I had just laid out and then just brought in and changed out the data, but with only 3 pieces of information linked to it, it's just as fast for me to do it this way. So this first one is our total number of runs for the day. And I chose the aggregate only count it if it started within the day. So that's why I labeled that as runs started. There's my duration, and now we've got our mean time between the runs. Average mean time between the runs, right? Well, I guess, yeah, sure. That's what mean time is, isn't it? 36 minutes looked like was what that mean time was. Okay, now we're looking at our time-based chart and shifting it back a day. Now this, I want to bring in my total production for the day. I want to see that production charted. And I also want to bring in the amount of reject that I had by hour. So first we'll bring in the day to date. So every hour, this is a totalizer of the hours since the beginning of the day. I'm going to do an area on this, and we will go ahead and let the color be my default, but I'm going to change the opacity. I think I might have missed adding a different legend title to this, but probably come back later and catch it. And now I want an hourly bad value. This is not a totalizer, so every hour I'll have a different value, and I'm going to express this over top of my throughput, and I'll use the column feature. I have a universal red that I like to use. I don't actually have it built into my theme, which would have been wise. I could have gone up to the deployment tab on the left-hand side under Flow Server and just adjusted my theme to represent this red color. I chose to do it the hard way, and you'll see me type it in 4 or 5 times. If I was doing this project again, I would get my theme set before I started building. Okay, so there's my throughput and my bad for the day. Next, how about I've decided to come and put a title on this. All right, so always a good idea to use the title field. That way someone can look at the report or the dashboard and know what it is. This was something I had not done earlier when I was thinking through this, but wanted to make sure that I showed it to you. Don't know that I'm going to do it on the other ones, because I don't think I laid out the room for it, but now you can see production chart full day is listed. Okay, so this is my shift-based table. That means this table has data that is associated with the shiftly measure. I wanted to bring in total shift production. I'm going to do it for more than just the day, because this is meant for you to use your shift production today and see how it compared to your previous 2 or 3 days. That means I need to bring over my total shift for the day. This is where I said I'm popping over in Adobe and just double checking the template that I was looking for. Didn't want to cut that out because I told you at the beginning I was going to let this run straight through. So there you go. So now I'm opening up my Shiftly KPIs, and this is where I am going to start with my total full shift. Seven-day average is next up. All I'm really doing is dragging the measure over and then just changing the label for this data table. Now, this is the delta between what we just did for the shift and how it compares to the 7-day average. And I bring in, it looks like I'm in at a max. All right, there is one thing I still want to do on this. That delta, I am going to apply a limit to. So let's take a look at it. You can see how it's stacked up now. So I've got each of my shifts, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, showing the 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. and then the night shift. But I want that delta to pop if we are below the value of 0. So I'm going to go down to the limit that I had previously set up. If you remember when I did the 1 hour aggregate, I brought the limit in. That means every single one of my additional measures built off of that also have a limit. And now I can set the limit to 0. I can backfill it. And in the tools section on the far right hand side, I've already said what color I want those limits to be when I apply them. And so there it is. Notice it's that same red that I've been using. All right, now I'm on the bottom section. This is my hour by hour production report. And this is kind of special because I'm not just going to give you the hourly total. I don't know if you remember when I built that 1 hour measure at the very beginning, I drug in the filler running event, and I also brought in the product name. Well, now I'm able to take advantage of that. I'm in the header section. I want to do a daily total, and I just needed to add that extension. So that allows me to say two things. I said take each hour and group it, and then by shift. And then I said I want to add another column at the far end that is an extension, and that's going to be my total day extension. I drug over my 1 hour total KPI, give it a label, and now I select context and say contextualize that based on the product name. This is where I am able to bring in the day to date off of that 1 hour. And there's my total. Let's take a look. You're going to see it broken out by product. That's the advantage of having all of that extra context. I'll do change the label up a little bit. Now I just need to fill out the other information that I want. And I'm basically going to do the exact same thing for good and for bad. Now I'm changing and thinking about adding a limit for bad. I decide against it because I'm going to show you the heat map feature instead. So take a look at the data. There's the bad column. I want a visualization of when I was at my worst. Bad's always bad, right? So let's set a measure itself. So we're going to essentially color it based on its own series of values. The lowest shade, it will be yellow. I'll use my fancy red color again for the highest shade. And then I get to choose the number of steps in between. I could also choose to have the middle steps the same color as the background if I changed the parameter at the bottom, the use base color. I'm going to choose to color everything. All right, so you can see different staggering colors from yellow to red, yellow being my least waste, red being my worst waste. What's left on here? I'm going to bring the total in again. This time I'm not going to contextualize the total. I'm just going to treat it as my grand total for all production per hour. And this one I will go ahead and use that limit. So here I am opening up the limit under the 1 hour. And once I've got that open, what am I doing? Am I showing it to you first? Looks like that's what I'm doing. Yeah, so I'm choosing to show it to you first. Thinking in my head, what do I want my low limit to be? I'm going to set it up for 10,000, I think. And my limit section for that measure is where I'll actually configure that low limit of 10,000. I need to backfill this. And then it's ready to go. Just need to right click on color and say set it to the limit. Now, everything I did there was correct. You'll see the limit did not apply. I did not give it enough time. I'm going a bit too fast. And when we flip back over, you'll see This is that part where you're where you're going for speed, and you also know you're going to use this recording, and you're on the very last thing, and you're like, did I just do something wrong? And so inside my head right now, I'm definitely panicking a little bit, but I just didn't give it enough time, and it's there now, ready for you. And with that, I think I'm done on this project. Take a deep breath. Everything worked. Let's go ahead and take a look back through it a couple of different days. The thing that I love about this tool is that it does work. If something's not showing up on the page, it's because I haven't configured it properly. And it's really a nice, flexible tool to be able to bring data from many different sources and visualize it. As well as now take any of that data that I just created and send it to other systems. Hey, I hope you really enjoyed this build. Total time was just under 30 minutes to go from nothing to over 40 different measures and KPIs, and then a dashboard that you can use. Thanks.